Hello, everyone. This story begins in a South Korean city named Daegu. From there, we meet our female lead, Ju Yeon. She is a high school student who is not only intelligent and smart, but also incredibly beautiful. Because of her looks, she is called Venus of Daegu. All the boys in her school have her as their first love, and everyone has a crush on her. Alongside the admiration of boys, girls envy her because no one else in the school has her height, pretty face, or figure. Here, Ju Yeon meets her senior, who is an excellent swimmer and has been a part of the national team. He has also competed in many international tournaments. His name is Woo Shik. One day, Woo Shik invites Ju Yeon to meet him on the rooftop, where he confesses how much he likes her. Her dimples, which captivated everyone, also enchanted him. He proposes to her, and she says yes, becoming his girlfriend. They were seen as a perfect match. Ju Yeon's lifelong dream was to become a lawyer. Fast forward, her dream has come true, and she now works at a prestigious law firm as a lawyer. But here's the twist. Ju Yeon's appearance has completely changed. Once incredibly beautiful, she has now become bulky, with her face looking chubby. The charm she once had is gone, and even her dimples have disappeared. However, one thing about her life that hasn't changed is her nature, her lively spirit, and her ever-smiling face. There's also another constant. Woo Shik has been her boyfriend for 15 years and remains so to this day. Ju Yeon believed that becoming a lawyer would mean her life was set and all her dreams would come true. But the reality of life is often very different. The stress of work, overwork, and lack of movement caused her to gain weight. She sometimes tries dieting, but she struggles to succeed. This is when we are introduced to the male lead of the drama, Kim Yong-woo. Yong-woo is currently in Los Angeles. Famous for being a physical trainer to Hollywood stars, he has miraculously transformed many celebrities. He was known as John Kim, but lately, his stars seem to be out of alignment. The reason was a scandal involving a superstar, Anna Soo. Anna Soo was often rumored to be involved in drugs, and news of her alleged affair with her physical trainer, John Kim, was spreading everywhere. To keep himself away from the cameras and publicity, John Kim had always hidden his identity. In fact, no one in the media had ever seen his face. Everyone referred to him as faceless John Kim. On the other hand, Ju Yeon notices the date. It was October 23rd. Woo Shik had invited her for dinner, saying he had something special to discuss. She thought he was finally going to propose to her. Feeling shy and excited, she went to dinner with him. At the restaurant, Woo Shik ordered an amazing dinner, including all her favorite dishes. Before dropping her off, he even gave her flowers. But then, he suddenly presented a ring box in front of her. However, it wasn't a proposal ring. Instead, it was the same ring they had worn as a couple. He was returning it to her. Ju Yeon was shocked and couldn't believe it. She thought, is he breaking up with me? She angrily confronted him, asking why he treated her so well, why he took her out for dinner, ordered her favorite food, and gave her flowers, only to break up with her. She told him, do you think behaving like this makes you a gentleman? It doesn't make you any less of a jerk. Heartbroken, she stormed off. Next, we are shown Yong-woo. He used to train a famous athlete named Jun Jung, who is the second lead in the drama. Known as the Korean Snake, Jun Jung was excellent in fighting. Meanwhile, Ju Yeon had to go on a business trip to the USA. She quickly packed her bags and caught her flight. In the USA, the male lead of the drama, Yong-woo, lived with Jun Jung and a manager named Kim Woo-ji. The three of them appeared to be close friends. But lately, Yong-woo had been under a lot of stress because of the same scandal. He wanted to return to Korea, but he was trying to avoid the media and his family. In reality, Yong-woo came from a very wealthy family, but he didn't want to take over the family business. That's why Yong-woo was currently in the USA. Meanwhile, Ju Yeon finished her work and boarded her return flight. Coincidentally, someone sat next to her in the economy class seat. It was Kim Woo-ji. Actually, Jun Jung, seeing a pregnant lady, had given up his first-class seat for her and sent his manager, Woo-ji, to economy class. While sitting next to Ju Yeon, Woo-ji struck up a friendly conversation with her. A short while later, there was an announcement about a medical emergency on the flight. If there were any medical professionals on board, they were requested to come forward. It was then revealed that Yong-woo, who wanted to surprise his friends, was also on the same flight. Because of the emergency, he had no choice but to show himself. The medical emergency turned out to be with none other than Ju Yeon. Ju Yeon was so unwell that she had to be carried by 2 or 3 people to first class. There, her clothes were cut to free her from a tightly fitted garment that was causing her distress. Yong-woo stepped in and provided first aid. He also administered IV medication to stabilize her condition. When Ju Yeon regained consciousness, she found Yong-woo standing in front of her. Embarrassed, She asked why he had removed her clothes. Moreover, she was wearing a slimming belt around her stomach, which he happened to mention, making her even more self-conscious. To lighten the mood, Yongwoo teased her, saying, "You're probably the first girl whose clothes I had to remove within 5 minutes of meeting her." This made her blush even more. He jokingly added that if she wanted to repay the favor for saving her life, there was an option. Yongwoo knew that his family and their bodyguards would likely be waiting for him at the airport. To escape unnoticed, he decided to leave with Ju Yeon in her ambulance. They managed to slip out through the back door, leaving his family's bodyguards baffled. After leaving the hospital, Ju Yeon remembered that Woo Shik had messaged her, asking to meet as soon as she returned. She thought, over the past 15 years, we've broken up and patched up countless times. This is probably going to be the same. As she was rushing to meet Woo Shik, Yongwoo spotted her and offered her a lift. Both thought this would be their last meeting, so they exchanged a bittersweet goodbye. However, Ju Yeon's heart broke when she saw Woo Shik standing with another girl, clearly his new girlfriend. Witnessing this, she was devastated. As Ju Yeon walked away heartbroken, a stalker began to follow her. She was all alone. Scared, Ju Yeon began to scream, but someone came to help her. That someone was none other than our hero, Yongwoo, who had arrived to return her bandage. Seeing how heartbroken she was, he jokingly suggested, "Why don't we go fight those two? Woo Shik and his girlfriend. But what can we do? It's raining, and we might catch a cold. Let's just curse them silently and leave." Yongwoo wanted to support her and offered to drop her home. However, she refused, saying, "I'm not a weak girl." She only took the umbrella he gave her and walked away. Despite her resistance, Yongwoo couldn't help but worry about her. Afterward, Yongwoo began to wonder where he could go. He didn't want to face his family or go home, so he decided to spend the night in a hotel. Memories of his childhood flooded back. How he became handicapped after an accident and went to the USA for treatment. He remembered his grandma bidding him goodbye back then. Those times were tough for him, leaving emotional scars that haven't yet been fully revealed. In the hotel suite, he eventually fell asleep. The next morning when he woke up, his family's bodyguards and his manager were already there to greet him with a cheerful, "Good morning." Despite his attempts to make excuses, saying he didn't have proper clothes, gifts, or anything prepared to visit home, they had already arranged everything for him: clothes, shoes, gifts, and more. Meanwhile, in Ju Yeon's office, a surprise awaited her. A new vice president had joined the company, and it turned out to be Susan, her former best friend and senior during their university days. However, Susan, who used to be chubby and bulky, had transformed into a smart, elegant woman. On the other hand, Ju Yeon, who was once the Cinderella of their school and university, was no longer the same. Susan made several indirect remarks about Ju Yeon's appearance and dreams, leaving her feeling disheartened. Though Ju Yeon still considered Susan her friend, Susan's behavior said otherwise. On the other side, Yongwoo was taken to a place by his bodyguards, but instead of meeting his grandma, he found out they had arranged a blind date for him. Reluctantly, he endured the date. However, after it ended, he managed to avoid being caught by his bodyguards again. With the help of Junjung and Woo Ji, he escaped and went shopping with his friends. During this time, Ju Yeon's phone, which had been in her handbag, accidentally got left in Yongwoo's car. Yongwoo called her using her phone and asked her to meet him at 8 p.m. for dinner, promising to return it then. Playfully, he also teased her, saying, "The slimming belt got damaged because of me. Should I buy you a new one as compensation? I'm out shopping anyway." Meanwhile, Ju Yeon kept thinking about how miserable her life was and how everything embarrassed her. She wondered why she kept facing such situations repeatedly. On the other side, Yongwoo met manager Min again, who informed him, "Your grandma is upset because of the scandal with Anna Sue. She doesn't want to meet you right now. She told me to suppress the scandal for a few days, and maybe, when her mood improves, she'll consider meeting you." We then see Yongwoo's grandma, a powerful chairperson of a massive company. She announced that her grandson would soon return to Korea, and once he did, she would make him the company's director. This announcement sent shockwaves through those who had their eyes on the director's seat, including Nam Chun, under whom Woo Shik was currently working. They feared Yongwoo's return would disrupt their plans, yet no one knew what Yongwoo looked like or what skills he had. Woo Shik was tasked with finding out everything about Yongwoo as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Ju Yeon reached the hotel on time and waited for Yongwoo. But there, something unfortunate happened. She came face to face with Woo Shik and realized he was now with Susan, her former best friend, who had become his girlfriend. Shocked, Ju Yeon accidentally bumped into a glass door, fell to the ground, and lost a shoe. She felt utterly humiliated and wished someone would come to her rescue. At that moment, Yongwoo arrived like a knight in shining armor. Gently, He helped her put her shoe back on and supported her to stand up. He then issued a warning, "Stay away from her. This girl doesn't want you near her." Yongwoo lovingly brushed her hair from her face, offered her his hand, and walked away with her, making them look like a couple and leaving everyone else envious. Yongwoo took her upstairs to his suite, where Ju-yeon seemed visibly embarrassed. Trying to ease the situation, Yongwoo said, "You must be in pain." Ju-yeon, thinking he was referring to her emotional pain, was about to reply when he clarified, "Silly, I'm talking about your shoulder pain. It looks dislocated. I can fix it, but don't make any weird sounds that might give people outside the wrong idea." As Yongwoo adjusted her shoulder, her reaction made enough noise to alarm those passing by, causing them to rush over. Despite the awkwardness, Yongwoo managed to help her and returned her belongings. Ju-yeon, feeling overwhelmed, thanked him, saying, "You keep doing so much for me every single time." When Ju-yeon comes downstairs, Woo-shik is already waiting for her. He places water, juice, and coffee in front of her, saying, "Throw whatever you like at me." But she responds, "The only reason I'm sitting here with manners is because I'm an educated and intelligent girl. You were already a jerk, but I never imagined you could stoop so low." After scolding him with harsh words, she storms off. Once she gets home, she immediately throws away all the memories of Woo-shik into the trash. The next day, she goes to Susan's office to confront her. Susan suggests, "Why don't we talk this over lunch?" Susan showed no sign of regret for her actions. Instead, whenever she got the chance, she would taunt Ju-yeon about her weight. Here, it's revealed that Susan had always been jealous of Ju-yeon. While Ju-yeon considered her a best friend, Susan secretly harbored hatred for her. Every boy Susan liked would end up falling for Ju-yeon instead. This envy had grown into resentment over the years. When Ju-yeon gets back home, she receives a parcel from the airport. It contained items she had left in the ambulance, including Woo-ji's coat and a card with the name John Kim written on it. She is shocked, thinking, does this mean Kim Woo-ji is John Kim? His surname is Kim, and he mentioned being Junjung's physical trainer. This must be his secret. Though her conclusion is a misunderstanding, Ju-yeon believes she's hit the jackpot. She decides to use this secret to blackmail Kim Woo-ji into becoming her personal trainer. After all, if he could transform the lives of big Hollywood stars, he could surely do the same for her. She confronts Woo-ji, showing him the card, and says, "What do you say? Should I tell the media that you're John Kim?" The boys take her inside, covering her mouth. The trio is surprised by her confidence, even though her information is completely wrong. They then hold a private meeting to decide how to handle the situation. They conclude, "Let's make Woo-ji act as John Kim. We'll train her for a few days. She'll eventually get tired and give up. Not only will our secret remain safe, but she'll also keep believing her misunderstanding." Finally, the three boys come out and tell her, "We accept your request. John Kim will train you and will help transform your life." Ecstatic, Ju-yeon goes home, deciding to have her last junk food dinner. After that, she plans to commit to dieting and exercise. The next day, Yong-woo prepares to meet his father after years of estrangement. As he gets ready, memories of his childhood flood his mind. His relationship with his father had always been bitter, and now, after so many years, he's about to see him again. He wasn't feeling happy, and his dad didn't even stand up to hug him. Afterward, they had a brief conversation about business matters, and in the end, he left saying, "Sorry, next time I'll make an appointment to meet you." As he left, he told manager Min, "Please tell Grandma that I miss her a lot, and to answer my calls." By evening, Ju-yeon had arrived at the gym to start her first day of working out. She showed great respect for Woo-ji, repeatedly addressing him as John Kim Sir. If anyone else tried to correct her posture, she wouldn't listen, especially not Yong-hoo. She told him outright, "You stay aside. I'll only listen to Sir John." Poor Ju-yeon worked out so much on her first day that by the end, she could barely move. However, in her determination to transform herself, she endured it all. The next morning, the same group of boys arrived early to help her with her morning jogging. They worked together to train and motivate her. Ju-yeon, in turn, gave her absolute best effort because she wanted results no matter what. The following day, only Yong-hoo was available to train her. He gave her a task to complete and then said, "I have an important blind date that my grandma arranged for me." He left for dinner, but interestingly, someone else was there too. It was Woo-shik. Along with him was Ju-yeon's mom, who had come from another city to meet her. Ju-yeon hadn't yet told her mother about her breakup with Woo-shik, so Woo-shik remained quiet and invited Ju-yeon to join them. When Ju-yeon arrived, she explained to her mother, "Please don't talk about marriage with him. He's not my boyfriend anymore." However, her mom took Woo-shik's side and scolded her, saying, "You must have made a mistake." Hearing this deeply hurt Ju Yeon. After Woo Shik left, her mother told her, "Look at yourself, your weight and your age. Who else would want you?" These comments were overheard by Yong-hoo, who felt very bad for Ju Yeon. The next day, Soo-jin gave Ju Yeon a task to appear on TV as an attorney representing their law firm. Ju Yeon performed brilliantly, showing her extensive knowledge and doing very well. Yong-hoo watched her interview at home and was impressed. However, during the interview, Ju Yeon suddenly collapsed and fainted. Concerned, Yong-hoo rushed to the hospital to care for her. Meanwhile, Soo-jin learned that someone else had also come to see Ju Yeon, none other than Woo Shik. Despite their breakup, Woo Shik still cared for her. When Ju Yeon regained consciousness, she found Yong-hoo sitting beside her. He gently said, "This time, take better care of yourself. Don't blame me this time. I didn't tear your clothes or your slimming belt." And after that, he even came to drop her home. Ju Yeon felt that his debts to her were just increasing. But today, he asks her why she wants to lose weight. As soon as she gets out of the car, he tells her that if she really wants to do it, she should do it properly. And he reveals to her that John Kim is not someone else, but him. We also find out that when she reached the hospital, she had some tests, which showed that she has a thyroid issue. Due to hormonal imbalance, she wasn't able to lose weight properly, and her weight was continuously increasing. He tells her that the training she was doing was for fighters, and it won't help her lose weight. He tells her that if she trusts him, her thyroid treatment will be taken care of, and she can return to her old self. Then, we are shown a flashback where, when Ju Yeon was sleeping, Woo Shik came and asked Yong-hoo what his connection with Ju Yeon was, but Yong-hoo replied that he had no right to ask, as he was her guardian. He assured him that whenever she needs protection, he will be there. Soo-jan, who was Ju Yeon's boss, saw everything and had come there to meet, but Woo Shik hid everything and didn't want to show that he still cared for Ju Yeon. The next day, when Ju Yeon goes to the office, she finds out that she's become the subject of ridicule. There were memes circulating about her collapsing in a video where a fat girl fell, and it had turned into a laughter challenge for everyone. She felt deeply insulted. Later, Jun Young and Woo Ji come to apologize to her, saying that they had kept a secret from her, and that was about who John Kim was. They asked her to forgive them and be friends again, and after a while, she forgives them with an open heart. Next, she goes for a one-on-one meeting with Yong-hoo, who tells her that if she wants to make a change in herself, from today, she should hand over her body to him. He will decide what to do with her, how to behave, what training to follow, and what to eat and drink. She wanted to make an agreement, a contract with him, but he tears it up and says that only his rules will apply. Meanwhile, Woo Shik finally finds out Kim Yong-hoo's identity through his connections and is shocked to discover that this is the same guy who is always around Ju Yeon. He is surprised about what's going on. The next day, Yong-hoo takes Ju Yeon with him and tells her that first, her body will undergo a complete analysis, and after that, they will decide how to start her training. She feels quite shy, thinking about how they are going to examine every part of her body to check where the fat is, what her shape is like, and all that. In the next scene, we see that some people have come over for dinner with grandmother, and one of them is Yong-hoo's stepbrother, the son from his father's second marriage. His name is Chul, and he's considered an uncle. In fact, everything happening in their company is controlled solely by grandmother. She is Yong-hoo's maternal grandmother, and according to their blood relationship, Yong-hoo's younger brother has no direct authority over the company because he is just the son of grandmother's son-in-law, meaning no one can compete with Yong-hoo. On the other hand, we also see that the three boys arrive at Ju Yeon's house the next morning and start searching it thoroughly, like custom dogs. They check everything: her kitchen, her bathroom, her cupboards, everything. They find a lot of junk food, which is poison for her, especially given her thyroid condition. They say this is why her weight never reduced while she was dieting. They only supply her with healthy food for her fridge and order her to strictly follow her medication. However, there's something Yong-hoo notices. He remembers that Ju Yeon had bandaged herself twice, and she had kept those bandages carefully. After this, Yong-hoo starts telling her that he wants to keep a low profile, which is why he doesn't want to repeatedly take her out for training. He tells her that she won't come to his place, but instead, she'll come to his house. His house was very luxurious. She asks him, "Is this your own house?" He says, "You probably won't believe it, but I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and I am the sole heir to my company. However, it's a different matter that I've never been there." Well, Ju Yeon didn't believe him at all. After that, her training begins, and she faces quite a bit of embarrassment. Yong-hoo always came very close to her to train her. Whether she was getting up, sitting, sleeping, or waking up, Yong-hoo was always around her. in her house, at the office, everywhere. He was either correcting her posture, stopping her from eating unhealthy food, or reminding her to take her medication. It was overwhelming for her. One day, Young-hoo comes to drop her home at night, but as soon as she enters her house, a neighbor, who had been stalking her for a while, arrives. He forces his way into her house. However, Young-hoo sees him following her and immediately enters her house to protect her. He gives the guy a good beating. They all end up at the police station, but there is no solid evidence against the stalker. The stalker claims that he only went over to greet his neighbor, and the police officers couldn't believe that such a handsome guy could stalk a girl like her. They think it must just be a misunderstanding. Outside, Young-hoo asks her, "Look, you're an attorney, yet you didn't speak up for your rights." She starts talking about what punishment the stalker deserves and says that the law doesn't protect her the way it should. He tells her that staying at her house isn't safe because the lock was broken, and she replies that she's going to stay at her best friend Hyun's house. However, when they stop, she says, "This is where it ends. My house is right behind," but in reality, she was heading to a hotel, a cheap motel to be exact. Young-hoo had an idea and caught her red-handed. He says, "It's not safe for a girl to be alone in such places. You should have taken me along." She feels very embarrassed and says, "My friend's mom came to visit her, and I didn't want to go home. Plus, the stalker lives right in front of my house." He replies, "Okay, then you must stay at my suite," and takes her with him to his house. He gives her a blanket and a pillow. She asks, "What will you do?" He replies, "What do you think? I'll have you picked up and brought to my bed. You're not that special." But actually, he gave her his own bed. The next morning, after a lot of workouts, her legs were sore. So the three boys help stretch her legs. Then, they sit down for breakfast, and Ju-yeon shows them her old photos, where she used to be slim. They can't believe it's the same person. Later, Young-hoo leaves for a trip and tells her he won't be able to come for a few days. Later scene reveals By explains that after the fight, his knee injury from an accident he had in childhood has flared up again. He's going to another city to get treatment. Meanwhile, Woo-shik finds out about the accident and goes to beat up the same boy, warning him never to get close to Ju-yeon. On the other hand, Sujan was in a different kind of depression. She had managed to get Woo-shik away from Ju-yeon, but she didn't have the kind of hold over his heart that Ju-yeon had. Amid all the training, we see Ju-yeon losing weight successfully. She lost 5 kilo initially, and a little while later, she had lost another 4 kilo. The next day, Young-hoo takes her for another kind of training, self-defense. He tells her, "Just like that stalker attacked you, you need to learn how to defend yourself." He starts training her in self-defense. However, during the training, they have an accidental kiss. While training, Young-hoo often gets very close to her, and Ju-yeon feels very embarrassed. But Young-hoo remains confident and keeps reminding her, "You've entrusted your body to me, so stick with it." Once they return home, Ju-yeon can't stop thinking about the kiss. On the other hand, Young-hoo is also affected by it. Later, Young-hoo goes for his final analysis with manager Min and will be out of town for a while. Ju-yeon thinks he must have gone to the USA to meet his girlfriend, Anna Soo, with whom he had a scandal. He keeps video calling her, keeping an eye on her training. He kept a close eye on her, telling her to send videos of every step of her training. He was very professional and strict in his work, which is why he was so highly ranked in physical training. However, he never told Ju-yeon that he was actually here for his treatment. The doctor tells him that his knee has healed 99.99%, but he still feels pain, which means it's a psychological issue. The pain is not real. It's just in his mind due to the trauma he experienced in childhood. He reflects on his life, thinking that it has never been sweet, only bitter. And now this pain seems like something he will have to endure forever because it's psychological and there's no cure for it. Finally, after a long time, it's time for his return, and we see that as he enters, Ju-yeon almost falls, but he catches her. Her face has completely transformed, and her dimples have returned. As soon as Young-hoo sees her, he is left speechless. She says to him, "Are you going to jinx my dimples? I told you I used to look like this." He starts complimenting her, but then says, "It's fine. Your belly and hips are still as thick as before, because weight loss starts from the top and takes time to show below." However, in that moment, he feels a little jealous. He thinks that she must have spent time with Anna Soo, and to make him feel jealous, she says, "I'm really tired from the workout, so I'm going to get a massage, and it's going to be a male masseuse." Immediately, Young-hoo feels insecure and says, "I'll give you the massage myself," and takes her to the massage chair, adding, "Don't forget, you've entrusted your body to me." Finally, one day, they check Ju-yeon's weight, and she has reached 62 kilos. She had already made a bet with them that when she reached this point, they would give her a whole day. She says, That day will be Ju-yeon Day, and you'll live my kind of life for a day. Yong-hoo makes a fuss and protests, but the others have already agreed, so he has to go along with it. She says, "Today is a cheat day. We can eat as much as we want." First, she treats them to coffee, and then video calls the office to inform them that there will be no exercise today and no one should touch the machines. She then sits with them to watch a romantic movie and says, "Let's take a break for a while," and they all fall asleep without any set time. When it's time for dinner, she tells them to get fully ready and meet her wherever she says for her celebration. Although wanting to, they all reach the place, and she orders a lot of unhealthy food, which Yong-hoo hadn't eaten for years. She forces him to eat, wanting him to enjoy the real taste of life. They also take selfies together, which turn out to be really beautiful. Meanwhile, we see Woo-shik, who has been sued by the stalker for allegedly attacking and threatening him. The case is exaggerated, and Woo-shik doesn't have an attorney. Just then, Soo-jeon arrives, and she calls Ju-yeon to come there as well. Ju-yeon feels extremely embarrassed and doesn't want to face the stalker, but she's upset with Woo-shik for his actions. It bothers her deeply, and to make matters worse, they call Yong-hoo as a witness. Now, Ju-yeon couldn't hold back and tells Woo-shik, "From now on, there's no need to take care of me. Take care of your girlfriend. She's the only one who matters." Soo-jeon feels really bad about all this, but she feels helpless because she has already done what she could. However, she still can't win over Woo-shik. Now, with just 1 hour left before the date change, Ju-yeon says, "I really want to have a forced coffee today on my cheat day." She stops the car, goes inside to drink coffee, and brings some for Yong-hoo as well, saying, "I want you to taste the sweetness of life. It feels like your life is so bitter." It was raining outside, and she stands in the open air, while he comes out and starts sipping the sweet coffee, saying, "Yes, I really want to taste the sweetness too." He keeps looking at her dimples, feeling like he's drowning in her beauty. She feels shy and tells him, "Don't look at me like that," but he continues gazing at her like a hero. Creating a romantic scene, he opens his umbrella and says, "You gave me control over your body," and then kisses her. After this, she gets so shy that she can't even make eye contact with him. She takes his jacket and covers her face all the way back home, not daring to face him. But the next morning, she comes out looking special, thinking she needs to look good, especially in front of Yong-hoo. However, Yong-hoo acts like nothing happened between them as he takes on his coach persona, completely focused on training her. He makes her do numerous exercises, but today doesn't go well for Ju-yeon. A case brings back painful childhood memories. Her father's death due to an occupational injury. The company owner had given a small compensation, but never apologized. Today, another similar case came her way, making it harder to bear. She confides in Soo-jeon, saying, "Look, you've not only transformed, but it seems like you're not the same person I once knew. You've become cruel, cold-hearted." Meanwhile, Yong-hoo musters the courage to visit his grandmother and finally convinces her. She becomes emotional seeing him and forgives him, embracing him, but she also requests, "Come back and take charge of the family business." Yong-hoo, though physically strong now, still feels like the weak child who had suffered in his childhood. Meanwhile, Ju-yeon does something unexpected. A horrible smell emanates from her bag, causing everyone to cover their noses. She had kept an orange in her bag a year ago, which had now rotted, spreading the unpleasant smell throughout the house. She hadn't even thought about it. But the thing that worried Yong-hoo was that Ju-yeon was still thinking about the kiss from the previous day. He was acting as if nothing had happened, and she was wondering, was that supposed to be normal? But Yong-hoo, caught up in his own troubles, was deep in thought. After a while, he makes up his mind. He decides to fulfill his grandmother's wish and take over his mother's company. Despite this difficult decision, he finally returns and tells Ju-yeon, "We did kiss. I haven't forgotten. And yes, I meant it." He also gives her a new bag, as hers had been ruined. She purposely teases him, saying, "You spent your whole life in the USA, yet kissing is just like saying hello, right? You've also been with Anna Soo." But Young starts saying to her, "There's no such thing. I'm still the same person I was before. And yes, I'm just clarifying to you that I don't have a girlfriend. She was just a friend." Well, after this, both of them spend the day with a child named Minji, who is actually Joy's boss's son. He had an emergency, so she entrusted her baby's care to them. They spend the day with the child and have a lot of fun. But today, Young gets a little sad because Ju-yeon, who was supposed to spend the night with the child, won't be home. Thinking about it, he gets sad, but then sends a lot of messages, and they talk for a long time. Meanwhile, Nam Chol and Woo Shik are secretly planning to break the shareholders to take control of Young's company. The next day, when Ju Yeon goes to the office, she learns that they have a confidential meeting. She is given an address, and when she reaches that address, she finds out that a big company, Gons, is seeking legal advice from her. Then, finally, the director of Gon appears before her, and to her shock, it turns out to be Hu Young. She had no idea Young was involved, and this shocks her. She runs away from there, and Young chases her, trying to convince her, but she says, "It feels like you deliberately hid this from me, like you've betrayed me." He forces her into an elevator, and as they go up and down, he explains a lot of things and says, "I actually told you once in hints, but you were so caught up in this shock that you thought our worlds were completely different and that we couldn't match." But where did Young care about that? However, there was a third person who was feeling very jealous, and that was Sujan. She was shocked to see that Young had not only taken Woo Shik, but now had someone even more handsome and richer than Woo Shik. She was very jealous. Finally, the meeting ends, and Young wants to talk to Ju Yeon, but she walks away from him. Actually, she had to go to her hometown to meet her mother. Young waits at home for a long time, but she doesn't return. Then, Ju Yeon calls Young and learns that she was going to Daegu, so Young decides to go to Daegu too. Actually, Ju Yeon's family had started a new business. Her mother and brother had opened a restaurant together, and it was having its opening. There was a lot of work involved, and she helped them out. After that, she quickly heads home, while others aren't back yet. There, she eats dinner made by her mother and remembers Young. She had a great fondness for him, and while thinking about him, tears filled her eyes. She starts thinking, "What is this? Have I gone crazy?" Just then, she gets a message from Young, telling her that he has reached Daegu and asking if she can meet him at the beach. As soon as she hears this, she runs outside but forgets the car keys. She takes a taxi and heads out. When she arrives, she sees Young standing there. It was very cold, and he signals to her. She doesn't stop and rushes toward him. They both apologize to each other, and because of overreacting, she had scolded him a little too much. After that, they hold hands and start heading home. On the way, Young tells her how his childhood was full of trauma. There was an accident after which he became crippled, and his mother passed away. He says that he hasn't been able to move on from that injury. Even though doctors say he's fine, he feels like he's not. And now, because of his grandmother's insistence, he has to handle the business. He then drops her off at her house, but before she goes upstairs, she turns back and says, "Mom is staying at the house with brother today. If you want, you can come and sleep with me. I want to hold your hand and sleep." The next scene shows both of them lying in the same bed. Here, Young teases her, saying, "You gave your body to me, so why are you trembling in fear?" She replies, "I'm not nervous at all, and I trust you." After that, he falls asleep beside her, saying, "Don't turn off the lights. I don't want my intentions to go wrong." And so, they both fall asleep. A little while later, Young wakes up and lovingly looks at Ju Yeon, who is still sleeping. Then, by the time morning arrives, he leaves before she wakes up. But before leaving, he places his thyroid medicine there. Meanwhile, Sujan, furious and jealous, has gone crazy. She thinks, "I have changed myself so much. I have so much money, everything. But still, I'm not happy. Why does everything good and better always go to Ju Yeon? She took Woo Shik from me, but I still feel no peace." On the other hand, Woo Shik learns something through a reporter. He finds out that Young has some connection with John Kim, and he starts suspecting that maybe Young is also involved with John. But for this, he needs proof, so he spends some time researching. He then goes and tells Nam Chul about it. As soon as he hears it, he goes crazy with happiness and says, "Before the board of directors meeting, we need to get proof of John Kim's scandal with Anna Soo, who was involved in a drug scandal. This means we can get the shareholders on our side. Now, let's show what's happening at home." When Ju Yeon returns, all three boys are very happy, and her boyfriend even gives her a signal to kiss him secretly. However, with everyone around, they couldn't be so open with their romance. By evening, her coach calls her for her workout session. She begs him to give her a day off and tries buttering him up, but he tells her, "Our dating is on one side, but right now, you are only my client, and I'm your coach." He is not going to let her off the hook, so he makes her work out extremely hard, and she becomes exhausted. Finally, the day arrives when Young enters the director's seat at his company. Everyone meets him, and he appears for the first time as a senior member of the company. His dad meets him and says, "The director's seat, which your mother held, I am handing it over to you. Now, I will have peace of mind." But he spoke to him like a robot, only congratulating him on his health and not asking about his well-being. Hearing all of this, Young goes into extreme trauma. His mother had died earlier, and his dad had always distanced himself from him. His pain was not just physical, but psychological as well. Today, he suffers a panic attack and is unable to move. He rings for help and reaches his room, where he has a full medical setup. He tries to treat himself but is in so much pain. Meanwhile, we see Ju Yeon returning. She notices snowfall on her way home and gets very excited, thinking about how beautiful the view will be with Young. She calls him many times, but he doesn't respond. So, she reaches his room, looking for him, and eventually finds his secret room. There, he appears in a weak and pitiful state, crying and struggling with pain. She wants to go closer to him, but he doesn't want anyone to see him in such a state. He pushes her away, and she can only hear his moans and cries from outside the door. Young feels that this is an illness with no cure, as doctors have cleared him, and it's psychological pain. Ju Yeon feels terrible that all she can do is hear him cry. After hearing his pain, she couldn't help but feel terrible, and finally, when Young's pain subsides, he comes out and meets Ju Yeon. He then shows her the truth about everything. Ju Yeon says, "So, when I thought you went to the US to have fun with Anna Soo, you were actually getting treatment in the hospital." Hearing this, she feels very upset. He tells her, "That's why I always say, things aren't always what they seem." She feels even more sad for him, and before she can say anything, Young tries to explain further. Everyone has hidden pain in their lives, no matter how happy they appear on the outside, but deep inside, there's always some pain that keeps hurting them. And indeed, it was true for everyone around them too. The next day arrives, and Ju Yeon says, "I had made a bet with you all, and the bet was that if I reduced my weight before the snowfall, we would go camping. I couldn't lose 5 kilos, but somehow, I managed to convince John Kim to agree." Now, John Kim was not just her coach, but her boyfriend as well. Boyfriends have to bear the tantrums of their girlfriends, so even though they were in a relationship, they kept it a secret for now. Whenever Yoongjun or Jae-woo were about to see them, they would overreact, making it seem like nothing was going on, but they found secret dating quite fun. Whenever John Kim would make her work out, their romance would continue. Meanwhile, in Yoongjun's life, a celebrity had entered the scene. She was an ad girl who did a shoot with him, and right then, she fell for him. Yoongjun tried to avoid her but couldn't, and eventually, she managed to win his heart. On the other side, we see the second couple, Sujan and Woo Shik. Woo Shik was so caught up in his office politics that he didn't have much time for her. One day, Woo Shik remembers that Ju Yeon once gifted him a tie and said, "The day I propose to you, I'll gift you a tie too." So, he calls Ju Yeon and asks her to meet him, but when he arrives, he sees her standing with her boyfriend at their favorite coffee shop, and the three of them run into each other. Woo Shik tells Young, he jokingly says, "Should I put a spell on her? But only if you promise to fight my case afterward." He was having fun with it. After that, he leaves them alone. Mashik needed to talk to him, and he returns the tie gift. He says, "It's not that I'm not sincere with Sujan. Yes, I really love her and I'm not cheating on her, but we've been friends for 15 years, so I can't just stop caring for her so quickly." He also tells her, "You are a very good person." Finally, Ju Yeon forgives him because she found someone who loves her more and takes better care of her. She says, "Okay, I didn't say this before, but now I wish you the best for your next life and your next relationship." However, Sujan had seen them together, and it spoiled her mood. Whenever her mood would get bad, she would come to the office and give a little lecture, showing her bossy side. Indirectly, she would take revenge. Finally, the day comes when they go for camping. Ju Yeon's friend Yoon also joins them, and this is her first interaction with the three boys. She finds out that the girls call them Mr. Sexy, Mr. Muscle, and Mr. Cutie. The five of them become great friends and have a lot of fun. During a game of confessions, Young makes his biggest confession: "I'm dating Yoon." Hearing this, everyone is shocked, and the worst part is when his best friend, Ju Yeon, finds out that he kept this secret from her. She sits him down and starts interrogating him, asking, "What do you do?" He replies, "I don't do anything yet, and I'm not sure what I want to do." She says, "So, you're completely useless, and how can I give my best friend to someone like you? Think about doing something productive." After hearing a lot of lectures, he takes her to his home. They lived in the same house, but now Mr. Mean was standing there, and he tells him, "There's office politics going on, and a trap is being set for you, yet you're doing such things." Young says, "Maybe I should confess today." Then, Ju Yeon stands by his side and announces, "Listen up, everyone. From now on, this is my girlfriend, and yes, you all know she lives in my house, so there's no need for any drama." Ju Yeon feels a little embarrassed, but Young tells her, "There's no need to be nervous. You think you're not good enough for me, but you are Miss Perfect for me." Ju Yeon had also found a new house for herself, and the next day, she was about to shift, and today was her last day in this house. Young says to her, "Why don't you sleep with me on my bed tonight? It's the last night, and we'll talk a lot." At first, she refuses and teases him, saying, "What do you think? You think I'll let you indulge?" But after a while, she picks up her pillow and goes to his room. She sets some rules, saying, "You can't touch me except my hands and feet." He asks, "What about dimples?" And she replies, "Not allowed." Reluctantly, Young agrees to her terms and lies down beside her, but her feet were touching him. They have a heart-to-heart conversation, where he wishes her the best for her new apartment and her new beginning as a director. After that, she wishes him good night and falls asleep. The next morning, when Young wakes up, she had already left without saying goodbye. But before leaving, she had prepared breakfast for him with a lot of love. She had shifted to her new home and had kept the bandage Young had given her. We also get a glimpse of Young's stepmother, Heron, who was his father's wife. His grandmother had arranged for his father to marry Heron, and she had served them well for 20 years. She was a very nice lady, but she secretly felt that she had hoped her son would get a share in the company, which would never happen. This insecurity made her tell Young, "You all can shift out now because the real virus has returned." Meanwhile, Young reaches the office on his first day. His attorney, Sujan, was with him, and they put aside all other problems to focus professionally. They also found out that the shareholders were being bought out, and they had prepared everything to ensure Young would be hired as the higher authority there and control the shareholders. After spending the day at the office, Young goes to meet his grandmother for dinner, but there's a surprise. His grandmother had arranged for the same girl to sit there, the one she wanted to marry him off to, and then quietly leaves. Young makes it clear to her, takes her outside and says, "I respect you a lot, but I can't marry you because there's someone else in my life, and she respects me too." The girl understands, and they part ways. Meanwhile, Young-jun's situation is a little different. A girl had been pursuing him. She once pretends to drown, and when he saves her, she kisses him under the pretense of giving him CPR. Afterwards, she says, "Wow, finally, I got what I wanted. Now you have to accept me as your girlfriend." Now, the truth was confirmed, along with the evidence that Anna-Soo had been in a relationship with her boyfriend, John Kim. It was a rumor at first, but soon the identity of John Kim would be revealed. Young was sitting at the office, starting his new job, but he found mental work very challenging, as he was only used to working out. However, he still made time to meet Ju-yeon. He didn't have time to go inside, so he stood outside saying, "I love you," and left because Mr. Min was keeping a close watch on him. The next day was going to be very important, as there was a board of directors meeting where, with their approval, Young would legally become the director of the company. They entered the meeting with great pride, but since Young had managed to sway many people to his side, several major shareholders were absent, and the meeting yielded no results. Meanwhile, Ju-yeon was getting ready at home, wearing a tight dress that she had never been able to fit into before. She also did a beautiful makeup look. She was feeling confident, thinking, "John Kim has truly transformed me." However, she soon received news that a bombshell had exploded on social media. The news was that John Kim was actually Young, and he was about to become the company's director. But Young's own image had been tarnished due to a drug scandal, so no one was going to accept her easily. She became very worried and couldn't reach his number, while Hu Young was stood outside her door because there were reporters at his house and outside his hotel suite. He had no safe point except for his home. Then Ju-yeon said, "This house might not be worthy of you. It's far from your world and small, but I still welcome you with an open heart." On the other hand, her grandmother was worried about the scandal and also about the fact that Young had made an attorney his girlfriend. She wanted him to marry someone who would strengthen his position, as there were many people out to bring him down. Meanwhile, Young was feeling deeply depressed, and his psychological pain started again. As soon as he began to feel the pain, he sent Ju-yeon out of the room and was left to suffer alone. He never allowed her to see him in such a down state. Then we learned that his friend, Jun-jung, had met him at a time when he was badly injured and in a miserable state. Jun-jung couldn't bear the pain of weak and helpless people, and he thought Young was pitying him. However, Young told him that pain was something he shared with him and people like him, because he himself had endured a lot of pain and couldn't bear to see others in pain. Jun-jung was working out when Yoon came there. He was lying down, exhausted, and she lay down beside him saying, "Wow, this relationship is moving so fast. One day it was a kiss, and today we are lying together." Her behavior was very childish, but Jun-jung found it cute. Now, all three boys came to Ju-yeon's house. They were used to working out early in the morning, but there was no equipment in her small house. She decided to give them a Korean auntie's workout and took them to the park and forest. The exercises she did with them were the same as the ones she did with her aunts, but she kept their faces covered so they wouldn't be recognized. Though there was no logic to these exercises, John Kim enjoyed it because he was with his girlfriend. Finally, the time came when, after so long, Young went to his house. First, he kneeled in front of his father, but his father told him, "No, don't kneel like that. Your knees might hurt." His father always knew how much pain Young had gone through, but he never showed it. On the other hand, his grandmother was so angry with him that she didn't meet him. Junjung's own story was heartbreaking. His mother had given birth to him in jail, and then someone else had adopted him. His mother was innocent, and in an attempt to save her, she had committed murder in self-defense. Now, Junjung's mother didn't want to show his criminal background to his son. That's why he was upset and wanted to meet his biological mother, so he took help from attorney Yoon to somehow convince the caretaker. Meanwhile, Min Jin, due to his caretaker's day off, ended up at Ju Yeon's house, where Young was taking care of him. All day, the two boys spent time together, and John made Min Jin do many exercises since he was overweight. When Ju Yeon came home in the evening, she told Young, "We have controlled so much, and your scandal is being suppressed because of Anna Sue's statement. We'll handle the shareholders too." However, when he tried to get closer to her, she said, "No, I want a child-friendly environment in my house, so we won't get any closer than holding hands." The next day, though, she started to change her statement when she saw him come out of the shower, all muscular. She couldn't stop staring at him, and then said, "Never mind. What's the statement anyway? I take back my statement. You must be so open-minded being from the USA." And with that, he kissed his girlfriend. But before they could take things further, Mr. Min had arrived between them because at that moment, he had come to take Yong-hoo away in an emergency. The next day, he was supposed to get approval from the board of directors and also attend the 61st anniversary of their company, where he was supposed to make an entry. The celebration had many elite-class guests, and Nu Yeon, being their attorney, was present there. She was waiting, as it was getting late, but Yong-hoo had not arrived. She began to worry. She couldn't reach his number, and Mr. Min couldn't find him either. She understood that he must be in trouble and probably in pain, so she searched for him. Finally, she found him sitting in a corner, unable to walk due to the pain in his leg. She became his support, encouraged him, and said, "Look, I was once impossible too, but I changed myself. You can change too. Right now, you are your grandmother's last hope. If you don't make it, everything will fall apart. You have to fight." Somehow, she convinced him, and he made his way to the announcement stage, declaring that he would be the new director of the company. Seeing him healthy and strong, many people who were with him were happy, but there were also enemies present. One of them, Chang, became very angry and called his sister, saying, "My nephew, Yoon's position is now much worse. I don't know what he will get and what he will become." Yoon overheard this, and he was devastated, as he was just a child, and his uncle had poisoned his mind. He became very disheartened. Meanwhile, the girl, who had been wearing heels all day and running to find Yong-hoo, twisted her ankle. She was sitting alone when Young came with all his bodyguards and team, pushing them aside to meet her. He explained to her how to take care of her foot, and then, along with Junjung and Wooji, he left, as he had some important work to attend to. He dropped her off at her apartment, where, to his surprise, his mother was already there. Having come without informing him, she was shocked to see the two boys, but when she found out they were his exercise partners, she was happy. They all shared a delicious meal made by his mother, and the dish was brought along to their house. The next morning, as soon as Young saw the dish for breakfast, even though it was unhealthy, he decided to change his routine and eat it anyway. He took it from Wooji and enjoyed the meal. He started eating because it was made by his future mother-in-law. Meanwhile, Yong-hoo was doing his job very well. Even though he was new, he wasn't foolish. He had caught many mistakes in the company that could have caused significant damage. Nam Chul had to accept this, even though it was a tough pill to swallow. One day, Ju Yeon was sitting relaxed in her office when Yong-hoo suddenly arrived and caught her. She had been lying, saying she was maintaining a good posture, but he exposed her in front of the entire office. He took her to lunch, thinking they were going on a nice date, but he had actually brought her for a physical examination. The results came in, revealing that her body fat and posture had improved significantly. Additionally, her blood tests showed that her thyroid was under control, and her stomach fat had almost disappeared. She was thrilled to hear this, and as a treat, he let her have ice cream. On the other hand, Yoon's grandmother called Heron to thank her. She told her, "You've served me for many years, but your brother turned out to be very selfish. I never imagined he would try to change his ways. Now, you can leave, and I'll give you a large compensation and allowance for your service." Finally, Christmas Eve arrived, and the next day was Yong-hoo's birthday. They all gathered to celebrate, eat, dance, and enjoy the day. Today, Jung-jun received a call from his mother, who wanted to meet him. He was very excited, and Young could see his happiness. He told him to take his mother out for dinner. However, at the same time, Harry was going through a tough time. Her son Yoon had tried to take his own life because he thought he had become a burden in his mother's life. As a result, he was being kicked out of his grandmother's house. Nam-chul was furious when he saw this and started telling his sister, as long as Yong-hoo is alive, nothing will happen to Yoon. Therefore, Yong-hoo must be removed from the picture. But Mr. Min had been keeping an eye on them, and he was aware of everything. He hears about it and informs Yong-hoo, who becomes worried because his car is with Jung-jun at that moment. He fears something might happen to it and decides to chase after them. Harin also follows him to stop her brother. On the highway, a huge accident takes place. As Nam-chul was about to harm Jung-jun's car, Yong-hoo tries to save it. Harin also gets injured severely in the accident. Yong-hoo, despite being injured, had severe bleeding. Other people manages to get him to the hospital, where surgery begins immediately. His life was in danger. Meanwhile, Ju Yeon had no idea about the accident. She tried contacting him, but no one answered the calls. Finally, they found out that Yong-hoo had survived, but had suffered multiple fractures, and one of his legs was severely injured. Ju Yeon goes to see Sujan and treats her like a friend, not as a boss. She asks, "What's your problem? You didn't even apologize for taking what was mine. Say sorry," and starts hitting her. It is at this point that Sujan bursts out and reveals the truth. She says, "You also hurt me a lot back in university." There were so many misunderstandings between them, and Sujan had misunderstood her. This had created a wall between them. The two girls apologize to each other and become friends again. Ju Yeon, feeling concerned for Yong-hoo, goes to find him. She tells Jung-jun, "Take me to Yong-hoo now. I know he must be in pain, suffering." Despite Ju Yeon's insistence, Jung-jun tries to avoid it. However, Ju Yeon insists and reaches the hospital, but Yong-hoo's bodyguards stop her as he had ordered that he didn't want to see her. She cries and screams, and then Yong-hoo sends her a message from his phone. The message reads, "Tap, tap," a special code he had taught her during their training. The code meant that if she tapped twice, he wanted to be left alone. Standing outside his door, she says, "I know you don't want to see me because you can't bear to see me cry and sad, but I'll wait for you no matter how many years it takes. Come to me no matter the circumstances. You'll always be my Mr. Sexy." She respects his decision and leaves. Later, Yong-hoo's grandmother arrives at Harin's place and says, "Your brother did a terrible thing. I will never forgive Nam-chul, but thank you for trying to save Yong-hoo's life." Meanwhile, the confusion between Sujan and Woo-shik was resolved, and they became a couple. Time passed. A year went by, and the next Christmas arrived. Ju Yeon's life had become very lonely, and he kept seeing Yong-hoo everywhere, with his arms stretched out towards him, but it was always just an illusion. One day, while passing by, he accidentally bumps into the same illusion. It turns out that the real Yong-hoo is standing in front of him, completely fine, standing on his own feet. At this point, we are taken into a flashback. Actually, all this time was very difficult for Yong-hoo. He felt like his childhood was repeating itself. The same sufferings he went through before were happening again. In his childhood, he didn't have an accident, but he had a rare disease that caused his leg not to function properly. During all his treatment, he missed his mother a lot, and as a way to pass time, he kept knitting a scarf for her. However, he didn't know that his mother had passed away. His family kept this secret from him because they didn't want to hurt him. When he came out of his hospital room, he noticed a bandage on his door, and Mr. Min told him, "Ju Yeon left this for you." He took the bandage, thinking it was a token of luck from Ju Yeon. He then goes to the US for his treatment. At the airport, the same story repeats itself after many years. All the hard work he had put in. He was a fighter. He had never given up before, and he wasn't giving up now. No matter what, he had to return to Ju Yeon. In the meantime, he meets Jun Jung, who came to congratulate him after winning a championship. Finally, the day arrives when Mr. Min goes to the airport to receive him, and he is shocked to see Yong-hoo walking on his own feet. When Yong-hoo meets Ju Yeon, he gives her the same scarf he had been knitting for her. Ju Yeon is surprised and happy to see him, and just then, calls come in from the office. Before the Christmas break, Ju Yeon had a heavy workload and had to submit some things, but Ju Yeon holds his hand and doesn't want to let him go. She doesn't want to be separated from him again. Once his work is over, she hugs him tightly and cries a lot. But before they can share their sorrows, Mr. Min calls for him, saying that Yong-hoo has to go meet his family. As he walks towards his grandmother, the happiness on their faces is priceless. Today, even his dad's eyes shine with joy. His son had been given a new life. The family sits together for a meal, and his dad asks him about his psychological pain. This is when Young-hoo realizes that his dad had always been aware of every illness and suffering he went through, but he never showed it. Then Christmas arrives, and with it, Young-hoo's birthday. Everyone gathers to celebrate his birthday. Today, Mr. Min is also showing a different side of himself. He, who is usually serious, sings a song for Young-hoo's celebration. They sing, and they sing so badly that no one can control their laughter. Meanwhile, Soo-jeon is proposed by Woo-shik and looks very happy. This Christmas was much better than before. Young-hoo's mother, who had always been alone, now had a new member in her life, her adorable grandson, and thus, the day passes. Finally, Joo-yeon and Young-hoo get some alone time. They share all their sorrows and joys with each other, and then spend some quality time together. The next morning, they watch a movie together. Young-hoo tells Joo-yeon that he wants to test her. She thinks it's going to be something romantic, but it turns out he's making her do all the exercises to check if her stamina has decreased. After making her do a lot of workouts, he wants to spend some more time with his girlfriend, but then he gets a call. It's from Joo-yeon's mother, who is currently in Seoul. She says, "You're getting so old. When are you going to get married? It's been a year, and you haven't even introduced me to your boyfriend. I think he's either in debt or a wanted criminal. That's why you're not introducing him to me." To cheer her up, Jun-jung and Woo-ji also arrive, and after a short while, our hero, Young-hoo, arrives to meet his mother-in-law. It's their first meeting, and he looks a little confused. However, his mother-in-law isn't strict at all, and immediately asks him, "Will you keep my daughter happy?" He says, "Yes, of course," and she agrees. It was easy to convince her. Meanwhile, we see Soo-jeon, who wasn't feeling well, and one day she goes to the hospital. She was heading to the gynecology ward when Woo-shik happens to see her. He gets excited and wonders if some good news is coming their way. He quickly goes to buy a gift for Soo-jeon and heads straight to her. As soon as she sees the kid's shoes, Soo-jeon gets angry and says, "I'm not pregnant, and I can't be pregnant." Actually, she had a medical condition that made pregnancy very difficult, and the doctor had informed her about this. She scolds and yells at Woo-shik, sending him out of the house. On the other hand, Young-hoo had told Joo-yeon that he was going to take her somewhere far. She immediately gets ready and packs her suitcase. He says, "We're not going that far," and starts checking her suitcase, finding many sexy nightgowns. Seeing this, he tells her, "We'll be back by night. Don't overthink it." He had taken her to his mother's memorial. It's here that Joo-yeon receives a message from the chairman saying, "I'm Young-hoo's grandmother, and I'd like to meet you." The two of them spend the day together, having a lot of fun. As they observe other couples, Joo-yeon says, "I've been with you for so long, but I still feel lonely. Please, can you give me a ring?" He says, "I already have one for you." He opens a ball of yarn that had been knitted into a scarf and reveals a beautiful ring inside. He proposes to her saying, "I can't promise to live and die together, but I can promise this, Joo-yeon, I will never let you get hurt." She says yes. They return home, but today she visits her friend Hyun's house. First, she shows off her ring to her, then confesses how depressed she feels. She says that tomorrow she's meeting Young-hoo's grandmother, who is a very powerful and influential woman, the chairman of a big company. Just thinking about meeting her makes Joo-yeon nervous. Hyun coaches her and selects a dress for her, which is a bit old-fashioned. Joo-yeon says, "It looks so old-fashioned," but Hyun replies, "Don't worry, even this dress will look modern on Miss Chairman, given her age." Finally, the next day, she goes to meet the grandmother. After seeing her, the grandmother picks up her bag, but immediately says, "If you want to place a check in front of me or bid for me, then you are insulting me." She says, "If you want to do whatever you wish, go ahead, but I will not leave Young-hoo." The grandmother, who had seen a lot of drama, tells her, "I am very old now, and at this age, I often get a cold. I was just pulling out my handkerchief." She adds, "Apart from your dress, I liked everything about you." Actually, when Joo-yeon had cried in front of Young-hoo's door, saying, "I will wait for you, and no matter what state you come back in, you will always be my Mr. Sexy," the grandmother overheard it. Right then, the grandmother decided that this girl would be the best for Young-hoo. But before leaving, the grandmother sets a very tough condition, which leaves Joo-yeon quite upset. When Young-hoo comes to meet her, Joo-yeon says, "I met your grandmother. She asked for a grandson as dowry." Hearing this, Joo-yeon becomes determined to give the grandmother a gift as soon as possible. However, our hero refuses to listen to her, and whenever she tries to make any move, he starts her workout routine and sets targets for her. She achieves these targets, but still, he doesn't listen to her. One day, a family meeting happens when Joo-yeon visits their house wearing a traditional dress, but it looks a bit too much. She senses a quiet tension in the house and learns that everyone stays in their own rooms all the time. She brings them out of their rooms and starts performing for them. She sings a poem for the grandmother's long life, but the poem is so funny that she keeps repeating, "If you come at 60, I'll send you back saying this, and if you come at 70, I'll send you back saying that." The grandmother laughs so much at this that it's the first time anyone has made her laugh so hard. The family has a lot of fun together, and it's the first time Dad smiles, all thanks to Ju Yeon. Finally, Yong-hoo reveals the reason behind his behavior. He says, "I am afraid of the illness I had in childhood. I don't want my child to inherit any illness from our family. There may be risks." But Ju Yeon tells her, because of these risks, we can't stop living. You should always think about positive and good things. She helps him overcome his fear, saying, "We will stay healthy and we will have children too." Along with this, another secret is revealed. Yong-hoo's dad had cancer, which is why he always kept himself distant and serious from everyone. Yong-hoo goes to him and takes care of him. Seeing this, his dad is really touched. He had 2 sons, and today, Yong-hoo also meets his younger brother and has a great conversation with him. Meanwhile, Woo-shik learns the whole story through a doctor. He comes to see Sujan and tells her, "Stop thinking about this. Your illness is not incurable, but we will treat it, and we will get married very soon." Then, in next scene, Ju Yeon and Yong-hoo showed up. Their big day arrives. Their wedding approval is finalized, and they do a beautiful photo shoot with their friends and family. As always, our heroine does something different. She says, "It's not necessary to wear only white for the wedding. I'll wear red." They have a lovely photo shoot with their friends. And then the story fast forwards 1 year. Now, Ju Yeon is at the airport. Actually, Yong-hoo had gone to Africa for a volunteer program 3 months ago. She went to receive him at the airport. When Yong-hoo sees her, he's surprised. What's this? This is the same Ju Yeon from the first episode. In just 3 months, she had gained so much weight. The reason for this was that she had become pregnant with twins. She says, "This isn't my fault. Our babies get really hungry." Yong-hoo is frustrated, wondering how he will get her back into shape. He even tries looking for her dimples, but Ju Yeon says, "Don't worry. When I get fit again, they'll come back." And with that, the story has a happy ending. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.